domain has ever done. So this talk is going to be all around innovation in business, innovation in marketing. But before we start, I'll give a very quick introduction. So my name is Peter Meinitz-Hagen. I am the head of content at Nominate. Nominate, a company you may have heard of, best known for being the UK domain registry for over 20 years. We are an innovative technology company specializing not just in domains and registry services, but in cybersecurity and various emerging technologies. And the UK domain website is a website that we run separately from Nominate, which is all about helping people being businesses and individuals, achieve more online. And so this talk today is combining a bit of the Nominate in the innovation and the technology, and a bit of the UK domain in the sense of helping businesses and people achieve more, because people achieve more through innovation, whether that's at the heart of the business or within the marketing department and marketing function specifically. We're also doing this YouTube Live as part of Digital Leaders Week. In the link in the description, you can see Digital Leaders and what they're all about, but this is a week celebrating digital transformation with events live, in person and virtual across the country. So why are we talking about innovation and marketing? So first of all, Nominate is a company which at the very heart of it, innovation is what drives us. Innovation is a topic that's always on our lips every week, no matter what we're talking about. It's also a bit of a buzzword. So you visit any business and marketing blog, there will be talk of innovation. There's nothing new there. Innovation, you would have heard the phrase innovate or die, a rather kind of over-the-top phrase to express that. Unless you innovate, you won't be able to stand out in a market. And I think there's a bit of confusion about what this means. What does innovate mean? What does innovation look like? What does innovation look like when compared to evolution? Does it matter? So what I hope really, I think during this talk is you will get a feeling for what innovation really is, how it can benefit businesses, and also how you can use innovation in marketing. And there are various scales to this and various extremes where you may have evolution and you may have really cutting edge innovation, and both are appropriate and both are valid. The people watching today is going to be a bit of a mixture of audiences, I'm sure. Now, some of you may be working for very large enterprises where you are a member of, hundreds or thousands, size company. And I'm sure, because also we talk to a small business market, some of you may be in companies with less than 10 people. The talk of innovation applies no matter what type of business you are. Obviously, the types of activities that you do and the scale of that innovation will change. Before I start, I also want to say this isn't just me talking to you. What I want is this to be a bit of a conversation, and I want there to be some discussion. So that those of you who are watching, don't feel like you need to hold your questions back until the end. Ask your questions throughout the talk, and I will stop and I will hopefully answer those or bring up those in discussion. I really want this to be informal, bit of a conversation. So yeah, don't hold back. So what is innovation and what isn't innovation? I mean, let's start off by looking at the dictionary definition. The OED is usually the first place people go to when trying to define a concept. And I've got it written in front of me. So innovation, says the OED, is a new method, idea, or product, etc. A new method, idea, or product. Okay. Innovate, as the verb, is to make changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products. So they are quite ambiguous definitions. We know it's about new. It's about newness. That's at the heart of it. But new to who? Is that new to you? Is that new to your business? Is that new to the world at large? Because you can innovate in all of those areas, and all of those areas are valid. Now, I want to make make the statement at the start of this that innovation doesn't have to be about what's innovative in the world at large. what's innovative for you and your business might perhaps be even old hat for some businesses, and that's fine. Now, depending on what you're using your innovation for, depends on how that matters. And we will come on to that. But I just want to make that clear, that innovation comes in many forms. You may be an employee at a company, and this is about marketing, so I'm going to assume perhaps you're a marketing manager, executive. You may be trying things that you've never done before. New channels, new systems, new tools. That is innovation to you. If it's the company at large, you may be trying a completely new channel as a company that's never been done before. That's innovative for your company. When we're looking at product innovation, real kind of cutting edge innovation, that's about doing something that no one else has ever done before. And we'll be talking about all of these things. So first of all, innovation is usually lumped together with technology. Usually when people talk about innovation, they're meaning new technologies. Often, innovation is enabled and comes via technology, but not necessarily. I think innovation is so much wider than technology. Innovation is all about culture. To have an innovative culture within your company means to be striving to do new things, to change the status quo. And I think that's really core to good innovation. And what is innovation? It's about looking at what you're doing right now, making the conscious decision to always be looking for new things, testing new ideas. In the world of marketing, this might be, you may have been working with a particular headline or message, or a particular visual identity across a range of advertisements. They may be working really well for you, but how do you know something won't be working better if you changed it? So it's the willingness to change and a willingness to test. So it's very much about a mindset, and really at the heart of innovation is the people and the mindset they bring to what they're doing. And innovation may be an analog thing. I remember a story about a car park which innovated by showing if there's spaces left by having balloons, flying at the top of the car park. For one reason or another, they decided that they couldn't have digital screens and digital readouts, so they used an analog method. That's still innovation. They're doing something new. They're taking a problem and they're trying to solve it. So innovation doesn't have to always push boundaries. Where innovation and boundary pushing really comes into it, I think, is when it comes to the marketplace and you're innovating to stand out. That may be you as a company standing out amongst a range of companies offering a similar service or product, or maybe at the very product level. If we look at a very a particular product and market that's evolved a great deal over the last kind of 3 to 5 years, the music streaming market. If you think about that particular market, you'll think of Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer. There are a few others such as Tidal, for example. Each of these companies are all offering ultimately the same service and product. They allow you for a fee every month with their paid products to stream. All of them are innovating individually because they can't just be doing what everyone else is doing. If someone's going to go, I'm going to use Apple Music instead of Spotify, Apple Music needs to do something different. And each of them hopefully have something you can identify. In Apple Music's case, their innovation was actually returning to a format that's been popular ever since the birth of radio, which is having digital radio stations. This isn't computer-generated streams. This is actual radio stations that you can stream as part of their service. Spotify's big innovation was its recommendation system. Arguably, it's the best recommendation system that takes your habits as a listener and tries to offer you new things. And recommendation systems have been an innovation ever since Amazon, really. Amazon was really one of the first to push this, way back when Amazon was a bookseller. It would say people who have bought this book have also bought these other books that you may be interested in. That was innovation. It's offering something that other people don't. I notice we've got a question here that's just come in, or a comment from Ricky saying, great when companies are being innovative because it's new to them. It's annoying and makes them look very old hat when they say they are being innovative when they're really progressing. Yeah, it's a really, really good point. What you say to the outside world may be different from the way you can communicate internally. I think if you're communicating innovation internally, that is the word you need to be using, innovation, pushing boundaries, trying new things. I absolutely agree that if you're doing something which other companies have been doing for a number of years already, don't go out and say, look at our amazing, innovative new processes. So I think you're absolutely right. But culturally, internally, innovation is the right word to be using, because it's, frankly, for some companies, incredibly hard to be truly bleeding edge. So going back to our analogy, Spotify recommendations, Apple Music has got its radio. You think, well, how else can you compete? Well, you've got people who think, okay, well, streaming music, usually that's MP3 kind of bit rate. What's that, 320? What about the audio files? Are they getting anything out of streaming? Which is why services such as Tidal is a CD quality and beyond bit rate on its streaming. There is another streaming service available in France which specializes in classical music, and you're able to stream 24-bit music. So there are various ways to innovate, and that's by looking at the market and saying, how do we stand out? Because if there isn't something that makes you stand out, then frankly, that's where the phrase innovate or die comes from. At the heart of all of this, it's about your customer. No matter what you do with your innovation, the way you portray it to the outside world and your product, it's about the customer. There are exceptions to this, and I'll come on to that in a little bit. But it's all about the customer. In the case of our music streaming examples, it's thinking, well, what's the customer really want? And you may be you may be targeting different markets to your competitors. What does your customer want, and how can I innovate to bring that to them? Always be looking at the problems they have and how you're going to solve them. I'm actually going to jump ahead a bit in my notes to an example of how innovation in marketing content has been applied by looking at a customer's problem. One example is IKEA. IKEA are incredibly innovative with their marketing. And one really nice example is what they've done with AR, augmented reality. One problem that customers of any furniture store have is it looks fantastic on the website, but what's it going to look like in my home? Even when you're on the shop floor, okay, you can see it, you can sit in it, but you can't really visualize how that's going to look. So IKEA have an app where you can choose any IKEA product, hold the app up to your home, and you can see the product in your home using augmented reality. Now that is brilliant innovation. There are many companies that may have done this already in the past in various forms, but IKEA are the ones who have really been pushing that a great deal. Now that's innovation. The customer's problem is, I don't know how to visualize it. Well, if they don't know how to visualize it, let's actually physically show them on a screen what it could look like. A really similar example to this is Dulux, the paint people. So if you go to their website, you can take a photo using their app of your home, and you can virtually paint the walls. Again, it's solving a problem which is about visualization. I've mentioned recommendation systems, which, this is another really interesting point, I think, which is about, should innovation be always about solving a customer's problem, or is it about solving a problem they didn't know they had? You may look at the example with IKEA and say, well, the customers have a problem, they can't visualize what it's going to look like in their home, so let's show it to them. You're solving a problem, that's fantastic. Apple is a company which gets spoken about very often when it comes to innovation, where they designed a product where there wasn't necessarily a problem they were trying to fix, but that product has filled a gap people didn't know they had. And in some ways, you can argue that's even greater innovation, because that trait takes truly kind of left field thinking. Because it's not always down to your customer to highlight the problems they're having. It's all about inventing things and trying new things. A really interesting other example, and this comes where innovation is pushing marketing and pushing sales, is where Ocado is an online grocery service, and they've done something very interesting with offering you sales, that spur the moment sales, just as you're about to click checkout, click pay for my groceries. So right at the final thing, they'll say, here are 10 products we're going to offer you at 50% off. They are not on sale on the website. They're just spur of the moment things. Again, you think, well, that's not particularly innovative. Well, it is, because no one else is doing that. It's a thing that no one else in their space is doing, or if they are doing it, they did it after Ocado pioneered it. And it's so easy for them to do. They choose 10 products, maybe that's based on things that aren't selling very well but are expensive, for example, and offer you a 50% discount. So it's at the heart of this. It's about giving things to your customer that make them happy and make them pleased. Often innovation is solving a problem they didn't know they had, but it makes them smile and it makes them warm to your brand. Innovation is very much about a culture shift within a company. Now, again, I'm not sure exactly of the people watching today what size companies and where you are within your company. I'm going to assume the marketing department. But when innovation is spoken about, that shouldn't just be the job of marketing. That shouldn't just be the job, if you have one, of an R&D department. I'm going to use Nominet as an example. So Nominet is an internet technology company. We have a research and development department. That department is constantly developing new things. It's where some of our products have actually come from. It's come from the R&D department. However, when we talk about innovation as a company, every single department, marketing, sales, R&D, tech and software, customer services, every single department is encouraged to innovate. Every department has the ability to do that. That doesn't just mean looking at new technologies. It's about looking at new ways of solving the problems that you have. So my recommendation is that if you're trying to develop innovation in your company and you're trying to push it, make everyone in the company on board with it. And make it clear that it's not adding to people's workload. Innovation isn't just another thing to do. Innovation is just a way of thinking about your work. It doesn't add to your work. It's just a way of thinking about it. Always thinking, could we do this differently? Could we try something new? If you're a company that is lucky enough to be big enough and have the resource to have an R&D department, one thing I'll really stress is make sure that your R&D department, which is ultimately the kind of beating heart of innovation in a company, make sure that marketing is working very closely with your research and development. I've heard people say that marketing should own innovation in a company. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think this particular author was coming from the point of view that if marketing own innovation, then innovation should be driving what the customer needs and what will help sell a product ultimately. I don't think marketing need to own it, but I think marketing need to work very, very closely, because your R&D department may be coming up with all of these fantastic innovations, and unless you think about how this could become a product or a marketable entity in the future, you may have been barking down the wrong road. So innovation and marketing need to be talking to each other very, very closely. And I'm going to make the point now that this isn't just about making products better. This isn't just innovating in order to make a product better to sell more things. Innovation is just about changing your processes. So whether that is customer services, which is about providing a better customer experience, maybe it's just making your department more efficient. If you look at your processes of how you work, if you map those out, map out every individual, map out their day and their week and the year as kind of flows of activity, how could their time be cut in half? A really, really big area that people talk about when it comes to technology and innovation, especially, is machine learning. On a much kind of less grandiose end of the scale, we just have automation, which frankly, most companies shouldn't be jumping all the way to machine learning. They should at least be automating things that can be automated. If you're doing a task multiple times on a regular basis, it could probably be automated. So if your company, for example, your department, or you just individually, you automate some of your processes and activities, that for you is innovation. You're changing the way that you work. I also think a lot of the mindset around innovation and how to really instill that culture is to think like a startup. There are startups out there who really push boundaries because they have to, especially in some markets. Again, you could look at someone like Spotify, which, they entered a fairly new market. They had to develop quickly. They had to try new things very, very quickly, because that's what they had to do to survive. Established companies don't always have that pressure, but you should be pressuring yourself to think like that. Think like a startup. Think about rapid growth. Think about, you hear these kind of terms like hacking, growth hacking and so on. But, I think ultimately there's a mentality that goes into a startup, and I think you need to instill that. What can you do to grow quickly? What a lot of companies are starting to do is actually have an innovation lab. So rather than just having an R&D department coming up with new things, you may have a separate entity connected to your company which is coming up with new venture ideas, actually developing new businesses. How connected that department or function is to your main company differs. There are some people who have them as separate companies. Some of them operate more as departments. There is a company here in Oxford that does this. They challenge themselves to create a new business once every year. And that's how they do it. Their business is creating new businesses, new ventures. And I think that kind of mindset is fantastic, because you're thinking about new things and new ideas. And it's about creativity. There is other benefits to being more innovative and having that kind of culture within your company, which is that it actually makes people happier in their work, because creativity is key, I think, to having a good working environment and a happy working life. People need to feel like they're being creative. And there's nothing worse than just being told how things are done and told, this is what you need to do, follow this to the book. By instilling a culture of innovation, people have the freedom to try new things and think independently. And I think that's really, really key. Again, I just want to remind you all, do ask questions as we go. I'm very happy to take those questions and build that into our discussion. For the final part of this YouTube Live, I would just take a moment to think about marketing specifically. How can one innovate in marketing rather than just at a kind of business level? But I think the business level, as I've kind of made clear, is if you innovate in marketing, that's innovating at a business level. So product innovation is at the core, often within innovation in the marketing department. What more things can we do to develop a product to help us ultimately sell more of that product? And I would say this as being the head of content, but content is absolutely key, because if you look at the examples with IKEA, that app they made was a piece of content that they made to solve a customer problem. And to me, new content is what you need to be developing. And that content could be anything, whether that's offline or online, product-based. Content is at the heart of creating new things and solving new customer problems. One area that gets spoken about a lot, and I've mentioned machine learning, and the other one is automated intelligence, artificial intelligence, AI. So AI can be a bit of a misnomer when some people use it. It's a buzzword that gets used too often in the same way innovation often does. Sometimes people say AI when they mean machine learning, but AI is about, not just machines that can learn from themselves, but can think independently. So those terms get used interchangeably, and right now I'll kind of be doing that as well. But it's the areas I want to talk about are specifically in the way that you can use AI in your marketing and advertising systems. So machine learning and AI, you're probably using them already. If you're running advertising using the Google's advertising network, whether that's Display Network or AdWords, if you're running Facebook advertising, these kind of ad systems and ad networks use machine learning in order to make the adverts more relevant and reach better customers. So it's already happening in the background if you're doing any of these things. You may not be conscious of those. A really good example of machine learning that's been happening for a very long time is AdWords' own automated bidding system. So in AdWords, if you're not aware, that's PPC. You do Google search, you see ads at the top. You can tell AdWords, okay, well, this is what my goal is for my advert, and this is how much I'm willing to pay for that goal. You can give Google that information, and then AdWords will then figure out, okay, well, how can I set up all the settings of your ads and your campaigns in order to deliver that goal? And it's using machine learning to do that. And you need to actually give AdWords a period of, I think it's around 2 to 3 weeks. Basically, you need to build up a certain set of conversions for Google to learn. Facebook does it with its systems. There are also new systems where you may have heard about email subject lines, which can be automated. There's a number of companies doing this now. Email marketing as a channel is by no means dead. It's very much alive, despite GDPR putting a spanner in the works for some companies. And especially for an e-commerce company, having someone open your email actually has a pound sign attached to it. Someone clicking open has a pound sign attached. Someone clicking through on that email has a pound sign attached. So very obviously, what subject line you use for an email could be the difference between thousands or millions of pounds of revenue, depending on what scale you're operating at. So there are companies out there that will offer services where you plug in stuff about your audience and you feed this tool bits of information, and it will basically write subject lines for you. The machine will write them for you with a bit of human intervention. So things are getting very clever. Chatbots is another thing that gets spoken about a lot when it comes to innovation in marketing and customer services. If you go to any talk around AI in marketing, chatbots will be a thing. You probably aren't aware of the fact that you're already talking to chatbots in many of the companies, particularly in their live chat functions. If you're using a live chat, there's a good chance that company might be using a automated chatbot to do it. And again, a lot of chatbots will learn from you feeding information to them. This is why actually knowledge bases are incredibly useful, because if you build up a knowledge base for your product or your service, you've got basically a massive FAQ. Your chatbot can learn from that knowledge base and FAQ and understand how to respond to people's questions. Another area where innovation is definitely happening, or new things are definitely happening, is voice search. Voice search isn't new by any means, but it's becoming part of the kind of everyday consciousness of marketers more and more and more as time goes on. When I'm talking about voice search, this is particularly with the rise of things such as Amazon's Alexa. Apple's got its own Home Pod or something, iHome or something they've called it, and Google have their own version. This is a device that sits in your house or wherever it is you are in your office. You can talk to it, and it will, it it will do things or give you results or answers based on your queries. Voice search is definitely on the rise. More and more people specifically are using Google using a voiced query rather than a written query. But what does this mean from a marketer's point of view? Whether or not you're writing the content for a website, whether or not you're planning, new changes in your product, for example, how does this affect what you're doing? Well, ultimately, I don't think it should be affecting you a great deal right now. I think when you're writing online and writing for the web, whether that's a blog post or a product description, you should be using natural language anyway. You should be using the kind of language that your customer would expect if you were delivering that information in person. That's always been my view. You shouldn't be writing for search engines. I think the one thing this does change is the fact that when you do a search on a computer, say, you may truncate your query. So let's say you're looking for events in Oxford on Saturday. You may go to your computer, go to Google and type in Oxford events Saturday and put a date in. It's not a real sentence. What you're finding with voice search and the rise in voice search is that people are actually speaking their queries. People are saying, hey Google, what events are near me on Saturday? What music events are near me in Oxford on Saturday, for example? So when you're writing answers to people's queries, always be thinking about the question that led to it. What is the question fundamentally? All this means is using more natural language. Imagine you are actually answering that question to a person, which is what you should be doing anyway. But when it comes to optimizing your pages, optimizing your headers, or optimizing your title tags, the thing that appears in the search engine, think about actual questions. That's really, really important. Now, on the less true innovation, let's say, end of the scale, is just trying things you haven't done before. At the very top of this conversation, I spoke about how innovation doesn't have to mean you're pushing boundaries for your industry or the world. It could be that you're pushing boundaries for yourself or your business. Try new things. Live streaming, for example. Video for a very long time has been, the new kid on the block when it comes to good content, for good reason, because it's more engaging, and as more people use their mobiles to kind of consume content, video is right up there. That's why short videos, in terms of pre-recorded videos, work very well. So think about things that other people are doing, for example, you haven't tried. So it could be live streaming. It could be running an in-person event. It could be trying a new content format. One example is the UK domain. So our website, the ukdomain.uk, we've changed it a lot over the years. And as of last year, we completely gave the website a facelift. The change that we made was that when you visited the homepage of the website, you're presented with a magazine publication. So we made a strategic decision to become a content publisher first and foremost with that website, because that was really at the heart of what we were trying to do, to help people achieve more online. That was our problem that we were trying to solve. And that's just an example of a thing as a business we hadn't tried before in that way, and we went with it. Thankfully, it worked because lots of thinking went into that, and ultimately we were solving a problem. And as long as you solve the problem, you're being successful. So just think about things that you haven't done before, new channels, new content formats. Always be thinking, what new can we try? So that, in the space of about 35 to 40 minutes, has covered everything I wanted to say about innovation in marketing and business. Hopefully it's been interesting to just get a feel for kind of what innovation is and how maybe you can instill it in your company and what the benefits will bring. I will use the next couple of minutes to see if any questions come in. So any of you who are watching right now, if you've held off from asking a question throughout, now is your chance to ask something new, and I'm looking down here to see if anyone's writing anything on the wall. I will say, while I'm just waiting for that, if you want to find out more information about how to use marketing to help your business grow, especially to grow online, we have a newsletter where every month we will send out everything new that we've published. And we publish new articles every day, new videos, new streams, new ebooks. I will write on this board next to me the URL that you should visit. theukdomain.uk/subscribe. If you visit that, you can sign up to our newsletter and receive monthly updates on everything that we publish and everything that we do. And if you visit that website, you'll see that every single new day we're publishing new articles all about helping you to achieve more online. If any questions come to you post video, please feel very, very free to pop us a message on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. The links are on our website. The links will be posted everywhere. Please feel free to ask us those questions. We use a hashtag across all of these channels, which is Ask the UK Domain. We monitor this hashtag and we turn the questions that you ask using Ask the UK Domain into new pieces of content. Usually 99% of the time, those are new videos. So we're very, very happy to help. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you've gotten something out of this, and I hope that's provoked some thoughts. In the comments, we'll be posting a link to another webinar we're running this week as part of Digital Leaders Week. On Thursday, I'm going to be doing another webinar, which is around another area of our business, which is the SEO implications of new GTLDs. The TLD is the bit in your website domain name after the dots, so in our case, .uk. I'm going to be talking about the SEO implications of all of the new GTLDs that you may have come across, .london or .vodka or .horse, or the .brands, for example, such as .bentley, .google, where you can have a branded domain. And on Thursday, I'll be talking about that. So thank you very much, everybody, and hopefully see you at a stream again in the future.